Glad you all are here today. So Heather, do you want to get us kicked off?
Yes, so thank you all for joining us today for the session, Overcoming Your Inner Grinch. We're so glad you could participate. Hope everybody got their Starbucks gift certificate. And I'm not going to take a lot of time, just wanted to say hello and welcome Jaclyn Badeau. She is going to be doing the session today. And I know everyone will enjoy it and get something from it. And hopefully for those of us, Erica, who have a Grinch in our families or ourselves, this will help us maybe tame the Grinchiness a little bit. So without any more delay, you guys, please welcome Jaclyn.
Yes, thank you all for joining Overcoming Your Inner Grinch, right? So there's lots of stress going on with the holiday season, and 2020 has been so much more than just normal day-to-day and day-to-day life. So very timely session. So I hope you all enjoy it. Again, I'm Jaclyn Badeau. I know a lot of you guys. It's great to see you. Love to see your faces on webcam if you want to turn those on throughout the presentation. We'll be doing a lot of interactiveness, so make sure you've already found your group chat. But my company, we specialize in coaching and leadership training, consulting in the leadership, emotional intelligence, HR space. For those of you who don't know me, my background, I've also been in public accounting. I've also been in a public company, head of global internal audit, did controllership roles. I've done a lot with the KYCPA. I'm finishing my last year on our KYCPA Educational Foundation. I was also on the board and on a lot of different committees. So I'm always excited to share with KYCPA and excited for you all to be here. So I want to do a few reminders as we get started, because I have a ton of information to share with you in this very short amount of time. So I want to remind you to take small steps. I'm going to be giving a lot of tips, a lot of information. Everyone has a participant workbook. You can follow along and jot down your notes and jot down the tips that you think will work for you. But that's what I want to encourage you to think about. What are some small steps that you can take to overcome your inner Grinch and improve your day-to-day personal, professional life? So again, there's be a lot of information, small steps, don't get overwhelmed. Another reminder, there's a ton of resources out there. We are going to be talking about stress a little bit. Sometimes that, revs up some things inside us. So there's lots of support that you may want to seek, employer programs, different coaching, APA resources. I am certified in emotional intelligence, but not any other field of psychology or medicine. So I do want to tell you that. But I would love to start with, why are you here? So use the group chat. Everyone comes to training for different reasons, different purposes. I would love to hear from you guys. Why did you decide to come and join us here on this chilly December day on Overcoming Your Inner Grinch? So let's put that in the chat. I also thought it was pretty cool. KYCPA gave us some Starbucks e-gift cards. Maybe that's the reason why you're here. Had nothing to do with the content, nothing to do with anything else. It was all about the Starbucks e-gift card. That's fine if that's what you want to put in there. Debbie, thanks for sharing. Yeah, learning more about EQ. We are going to go over the model really high level. I'm going to dive into 4 particular skills that really have a lot to do with your overall happiness. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, Kevin, interesting topic. Wanted to hear more about it. Cool. Cindy also, yeah, making you a Grinch in 2020. So let's get you on here, see if it can help, right? Janine, yeah, Darlene invited. And oh, thank you. That Darlene said I was awesome. I'd be interested in the program. Scouting, absolutely. I'll come to the Alabama Society and do this program for you guys. Yeah, learn more about EQ. Yeah, lots happening, Christy, right? In life with small kids and jobs and a lot of things to make Grinch. So looks like a lot of you guys are seeking out some tips, and I would love to share those with you today. Amy, yeah, good to see you. Amy, haven't talked to you in a while either. Yeah, some positivity these days, Jessica said. So I think we're going to cover a lot of those things that you are looking for. So first, let's start with stress, right? This whole thing is about how to overcome the stresses of the season. And so I just wanted to start with some definitions that I thought were interesting about stress, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So some psychologists have talked about stress being where we experience demands and threats without sufficient resources, that we don't know how to defend them or mitigate them. I think that's interesting definition, makes sense. Some other psychologists talks about when stress is usually occurring when you're operating at the edge of your abilities and that you're being stretched beyond your familiar limits. And the Mayo Clinic's definition, I like it straightforward as well. It's normal. Stress is a normal psychological and physical reaction to the demands of life, right? We all have demands in life in a normal year, let alone 2020. So now that we kind of have our, level set here on stress, I have another question for you guys. So get back out on that group chat. Stress, is it good? Is it bad? Can it be both? I would love to hear your opinion. What do you think? Both? I have a lot of both. Yeah. Yeah. Lisa, Denise, Debbie, Heather, Lisa. Yeah, both. Sometimes it can be motivating. Boom. Exactly. I actually have that on here. So sometimes, small amounts of stress can be good and can be motivating to perform well. Exactly. Just like you guys were saying. Now, what happens when there's multiple challenges daily, that is when it can really push you beyond your ability to cope, right? Our brain comes hardwired with an alarm system, right? I think a lot of you probably have heard this. When our brain perceives a threat, right, it has like a flood of our hormones and increases our blood pressure. This is all over of our fight and flight type of response. We've heard that. But once that threat is gone, our body is meant to return to a normal, relaxed state. And unfortunately, sometimes with complications and complexities in life, our alarm systems may not shut off, and then we have to learn stress management techniques to get through it, which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of you guys are here today, and it's help us kind of get our body reset and become more resilient to things. I thought it was interesting to look at the APA 2019 survey. Here are some facts. More than 3/4 of adults say they experience some type of stress in their life. And this was in 19, right? Nearly half adults say they have laid awake in the middle of the night because of stress. And 3 in 5 adults say that they could have really used additional support through the process with all their stress. Now, of course, the APA has done a lot of surveys also in 2020 with the pandemic. Here's one of their latest ones. It was gauging the stress of Americans, and the big kicker here, 78% of people say coronavirus pandemic is a significant source of stress in their life. That makes sense. I think we can all agree. So if everyone is experiencing stress, there's always triggers to that, right? So I'd love to hear from you guys in the group chat. Share with me, what are some triggers of stress? Maybe your stress or stress that you know from other people. How does it manifest in yourself? Like, when do you know? What type of event is happening when you feel like you're getting stressed? Share with me those kind of triggers. It could be a word, phrase. You can write me a whole story if you want. Don't know if we have time to go over it. But yeah, wearing my shoulders as earrings, right? You may feel that reaction, circumstances beyond your control, Heather said, like if you don't have a plan, if you can't think maybe about the future, like the uncertainty about, what's next, that could definitely be a trigger of stress for a lot of people. I know that, people with children, I can't even imagine what you guys are going through right now, and Jessica actually popped that up there, worrying about child's education in the virtual setting, trying to manage, your own responsibilities. I don't even see how you all are doing that. Yeah, as a planner, not being able to plan everything out. Julia, like that potty training. Oh my goodness, do not envy you guys. Yeah, but how, I put a slide up here. There's a lot of stuff on here, a lot of triggers of stress. And I just kept on, I was making the slide and I just kept on rolling. I'm like, oh my goodness, so many things that can trigger our stress. This is why we need this class. What are some techniques to overcome stress? So, that's kind of what leads me into why should we learn techniques to cope with stress? Obviously, we want to combat the negative health effects, including mental health. Lots of times, a stressful environment can contribute to things like headache and not being able to sleep well, difficulty in concentrating. Chronic stress can be attributed to things like anxiety and weakened immune system. There's also health conditions that can start coming about stress, depression, obesity, heart disease. And then compounding the problem, people who experience excessive stress often deal with it in very unhealthy ways, like overeating or eating unhealthy foods, especially this time of year, right? Think about all the cookies and cakes and things that we typically get into. For some reason in this holiday season, we all feel like we need to eat a bunch of things that maybe we don't normally do. But we should learn techniques to cope, to combat these negative health feelings and increase our overall happiness. So I think we're on the same page about that. Now, okay, so we're all here. We all know, right? We all know that we should do something about stress, right? We know it. So I want to talk about the G.I. Joe fallacy. I'm curious to see if anyone's ever heard of this one. So if you grew up in the 80s, or maybe you were a parent in the 80s, you probably remember G.I. Joe, right? So does anyone remember what G.I. Joe would say at the end of his shows? If you do, throw that in the chat. I would love to hear from you guys. Does anyone know what G.I. Joe would say at the end of his shows? I haven't heard anything. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. What he would say, it's kind of like a public service announcement. He would say, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. So this actually is not true, which is the G.I. Joe fallacy. Knowing is usually not the half of the battle in anything in life. Yeah, knowing things like where the milk is in the grocery store, knowing that's sometimes half the battle, or knowing like your multiplication tables, that's good to know. But in everything else, knowing is a very small part of the battle. So it's all about the habits and all about the practices and the processes and the learning in the process and actually doing something in order to improve. And so that's all about the G.I. Joe fallacy. So you have to learn these techniques. You have to learn and practice things. You got to do something. You just can't know about it. You got to apply it. You got to do it. So we're going to go ahead and do one technique real quick together. We're going to breathe. And literally lots of times you probably have realized there's been so many times when people just forget to breathe in moments. So I'm going to teach you how to do it. Yes, I'm going to teach you how to breathe. That's exactly what we're doing right now. So put a hand on your chest and a hand on your belly. I want to see it. Come on. Let's do this. Now, as you breathe, I want you to expand your belly, not your chest, because when you're stressed, you tend to breathe in through your chest, but the deep belly breathing is what relieves the tension. And now when you do it, what I want you to do is count to 4 as you inhale through your nose, and then count to 6 as you exhale through your mouth, okay? So it's really cool to just understand. It takes 6 seconds to come back to a state of logical and clear thinking. So if you're ever in a stressful moment, sometimes, or if you're having an anxiety attack or a panic attack or something like that, I know I've experienced that. And the first thing that I do is I just stop and just breathe. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth, and it's all about your belly, not your chest. And I'm having you put your hand on your chest. So if you feel like your lungs are expanding up there, that means you're not doing it right. And it's going to take practice and time. Sometimes you may lay down, like you can, don't lay down right now, but maybe you could practice later and lay down and practice this and breathing and expanding your belly. Okay, We've learned a technique. So far we've talked about, why you guys are here, sources of stress, why we really need to learn how to cope with this. We've talked about Joe Fallacy. You can't just know it. A lot of people just know stress is bad, but then they don't do it, don't practice techniques. So I'm going to start introducing you to some EQ areas. I'm going to talk about some takeaways I had. I took a Yale University class earlier this year. It's all about the science of well-being. So well-being is another word for happiness. And I want to share some takeaways from that course. And then we're going to, obviously, throughout the whole thing, talk about techniques to help you with your day-to-day stress. So I want to get your thoughts real quick. Share with me, please. What brings you happiness and satisfaction and joy in your work and professional space? I would love to hear what brings you those pieces of joy. So we've talked about a lot of stressful things. Let's get into the joy part, right? So what brings you joy in your professional space? Yeah, Debbie says, when someone actually says thank you, appreciates you, right? Expresses that gratitude. And one thing about that is it's more than just thank you, right? It's more than those words. It's what are you thanking them for? Thank you for getting this assignment completed on time. So you did a great job presenting that in front of those business executives. Be very specific with that thank you, with that gratitude. Team flow. Yeah, when you get in the flow, you really lose yourself and get a lot done, right, Lisa? Project completions, completing tasks, stopping to make a connection and focus on the people. We're actually going to talk about that in a little bit. Checking some things off of your list, right? Lisa, yeah, helping others grow and develop, team collaboration, bringing people together, those interpersonal relationships, very key. And we're going to talk about that. Mark, yeah, the sense of accomplishment with clients and staff, right? What about in your personal life? What brings you happiness? What brings you the satisfaction? What brings you the joy in your personal life? Love to hear your thoughts on this one. Yeah, Erica, your granddaughter. So family, right? Again, hearing connections of interpersonal relationships. Yeah, your 2-year-old granddaughter, Cindy. A walk in the park, right? Husband and dogs and getting out and exercising and having nature and fresh air and breathing. Taking the moment, spending time with friends and family, playing games with your nieces, hiking with your husband. I'm seeing a recurring theme of a lot of relationship oriented things. And, we're going to talk about that. And a lot of the things, we're going to start with emotional intelligence. A lot of the things that you all mentioned brings you happiness ties into the world of EQ. I put on up here a definition of what EQ is. High level, it's emotional and social skills. It's how you perceive and express yourself, your thoughts. It's how you develop those social relationships. And a lot of what you all said is around that area. It's coping with challenges. It's using information in an effective and meaningful way. I like to break it down. Some of you guys have heard me say this, but I like to break it down like a roadmap. So, a roadmap, Waze, Google Maps, whatever you use, you're trying to get from point A to point B the most efficient way possible, right? Well, that's how I think about EQ. If you understand your emotions, you know how to express them, you can maintain relationships, you can make better decisions, you could manage your stress in a more effective way, you're going to be better able to get from point A to point B in your career, in your life, in all aspects. So that's what EQ is. The two most common things that I hear are, what's the difference between EQ and IQ? EQ is nothing to do with IQ. EQ is actually the largest predictor of job success out of everything. So it's about 27 to 45% of job success, depending on what field. It's the largest predictor. I want you all to guess, what percentage of job success do you think is related to IQ? So throw out a number. We're, lots of accountants, finance, CPA people on here, right? Give me a number. What's your guess? Again, if the largest predictor of success is EQ and it's 27 to 45, What is IQ? Yeah, so I'm getting some 20s and 15s and 10s and 30s. Yeah, it's actually an average of 7%. Only 7% of job success is related to your IQ. And I think that's very important for our profession, because so often the kind of old culture, the old firms and old companies, right? How we used to promote was they've been here for a long time, or they're really good technically, or they're really sharp. That's actually, those aren't the largest predictor of job success. Of course, we all need that in our profession. We need our degrees, we need our certifications, we need our technical skills to be able to do our job no matter what role we're in. Of course we do. But it's not the largest predictor of job success. It's all about EQ. It's all about those people skills. It's all about the resiliency, making better decisions, communicating, having those relationships. So just as to reiterate, EQ is not IQ. IQ is something that peaks at the age of 17. You can't, it's fixed, you can't move it. EQ is not fixed, and you can actually learn EQ your whole life. I think that's awesome. The second biggest question I always get about confusion is around personality. Is personality like EQ? Actually, personality is not EQ. Personality, because a lot of people like to do personality assessments. I think they're cool too. But personality assessments are good, that you can understand your personality and how to work better with people, but you can't change it. There's nothing you can change of your personality. It's innate. EQ are skills, leadership skills that you can develop your whole life. So EQ is definitely important. I've seen so many articles, especially this year. If you see stuff like empathy, we all need more empathy. We all need to be more resilient. We all need to communicate better. We all need to blah, blah, blah. That is EQ. And so I want to introduce you to the EQ model that I teach in. It is 5 areas. You'll see self-perception. It's all about your inner self. Self-expression is all about expressing yourself. Leadership skills like assertiveness is in there, because I know that's a big leadership skill a lot of people struggle in. Then you get around to that interpersonal component, all about the relationships and empathy. Then decision-making, all about solving problems. Oh my goodness, in our field, how often are we solving problems, right? And impulse control, not flying off the rails and those type of things. And then managing our stress, being flexible, managing and tolerating stress, and being optimistic. So one of the things you see around the bar is that word that says well-being. Well-being is happiness. That's what it is. It's all about happiness, your satisfaction with life. It's an indicator of your emotional health and well-being. Now, there are 4 leadership skills within this model that are most often associated with happiness. And they are self-regard, self-actualization, interpersonal relationships, and optimism. And those are the 4 skills that I want to give you tips on today, okay? We don't have time to go through all 15 leadership skills. I have other classes for that, but I do want to go through these 4 to give you some tips. So if we start with the first component of EQ, that self-perception, all about the inner self, you'll see these 3 leadership skills here on the right that make up your inner self. And we're going to dive into these first 2, okay? Self-regard. Let's start with that one. What in the world is self-regard? Well, it's all about respecting yourself and having confidence. It's all about knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, okay? I'm going to show you this chart here. I like to show these in my courses because it gives you some perspective. If you look at the left side, if someone really doesn't use this leadership skill a lot, this is what it could look like. It look like maybe you're not confident. It looks like you have low motivation, maybe low self-esteem. If you really use this leadership skill a lot in that right column, you accept yourself, you're confident, you're fulfilled, you know your strengths and weaknesses, you know your talents. You're able to be driven to achieve your fullest potential. Wouldn't that be cool if everyone in our life and everyone in our work or personal life were driven to fulfill, to have their fullest potential there, and that we're all confident and happy? Wouldn't that be cool? I want to hear from you guys in the chat function. What's an example of, like how you could benefit either at home or at work if you were more confident and you really understood and shared with people your strengths and your weaknesses, how could you benefit either at work or in your home life? How do you think you could apply this? How could it make your life better? I would love to hear from you guys. Wouldn't be afraid to make mistakes. Debbie, oh my goodness, I love that one, right? I hear that a lot. Wouldn't it be cool if we had the environment with our personal and professional lives as a safe space? It's okay to make mistakes. Oh my gosh, think about what more we could achieve, right? Increase happiness, lower stress. Kevin, bam, that's why we're here, right? More confident in change, being able to take more risks, Janine, exactly. So many benefits of that. So one of the questions I get asked is, okay, with self-regard then, how can I get better at it? What's a tip for me? So I'm going to share a tip for you guys. If you want to get better in this area, again, this is one of the 4 areas that are most attributed to helping improving your happiness. Again, like Kevin said, also helps lower your stress. Identify someone at work. I'll give you a work example, but you can do this at home too. Identify someone at work, a colleague, manager, whomever, who you know well enough who will comment on your strengths and weaknesses. Ask them to list out your strengths and weaknesses, maybe with some specific examples. And then without looking at their list, I want you to do the same thing. Write out what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then without looking, do that without looking at their list. And then compare your all's list. Look for disconnects, look for similarities, and identify those areas that you can repeat those positive examples that they actually provided you in their list. Yes, Erica, how do you find someone with whom this, to be this vulnerable? That's a good question. It all starts with building those relationships and having those connections where you can say, hey, I'm trying to improve in this. I want open, honest, transparency. I want feedback. I want to get better. I would love to help you if you want that. So as you have those relationships, then you ask those type of things. Now, if you don't have that, I think it starts small steps into building a relationship and then getting comfortable that you know well enough, then you can ask them to do that. But I think most people could probably think of at least 1 or 2 people where they can do this very openly. So hopefully that helps. Now, the second of the 4 skills in EQ that are most related to helping increase your happiness is all about self-actualization. So this leadership skill is all about the pursuit of meaning and self-improvement. You want to continuously improve. Think about if you hire people who always wanted to improve themselves, the company. Wow, that would bring a lot of great benefits. So again, the chart, I always like to show this chart. If someone lower in this area, maybe they look unmotivated, maybe they're not pursuing things that are enjoyable to them. Maybe they're focused more on like day-to-day things versus strategic and big picture plans. If you're high in this area, if you're really utilizing your self-actualization leadership skill, you're usually very self-satisfied, passionate, enthusiastic. You're motivated to do your best. You set inspiring goals, and you're always usually on this quest to continual learning, which is probably why a lot of you guys are here today. You wanted to learn, right? So, question to you guys, what are some of your interests outside of work? I would love to hear those. Hopefully we all have at least something we like to do that isn't, oh, I'm a CPA and I love doing that. But what else outside of work do you enjoy to do? I know I have a suspicion on some of you guys that you like to do. Love for you to share them in the chat. Yeah, Janine, baking, exercising, decorating. Jennifer, kickboxing. I love kickboxing. Yeah, gardening. Heather, love classic films. Yeah, watching those films. Yoga, reading, cooking, making all the things. Sewing, costuming, prop making. That's awesome, Olivia. I would love to check that out with you sometime. Paddleboarding. Oh my goodness, Debbie, I think I would not do so well on that, but I would try it once. Exercise, reading, coins, gardening. See, you all have a ton of things that you enjoy outside of work, right? These are the things that bring you joy. And most successful people, the most successful and happy people are those that are in tune with the things that really excite them. They are the ones that tend to have goals or areas of interest that they pursue with vigor. There's a ton of research that talks about when you pursue all your interests, the things that make you, that bring you this joy, these activities that you all are listing here, that even makes you more successful in the workplace. And so some people ask, again, how can I get better at this? Step one, identify what activities you want to spend your time on, and also who you want to spend the time with, and then work those into your busy schedule. We're all busy. We all have things, but to really be the most successful, happy, well-rounded person, we've got to weave some part of these into our everyday lives. So I would encourage you to do that. Now, self-expression, I wanted to give you a high level on this area, even though there's not one of the 4 components that we're going to dive into. But self-expression in this model is all about expressing yourself the most effectively. It's an extension of self-perception. You have things like assertiveness in here. Again, that's one of my common requests when people are like, hey, can you design a course around X? I get assertiveness, so look for that to be coming out soon. But this is what it looks like in the leadership space for self-expression. Now, in the interpersonal component of EQ, it's all about the people skills, right? And oh my goodness, how often do we talk about people skills, especially in our profession, of how, we can build better relationships and make our team stronger and have healthier client relationships and vendor relationships and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the 3 areas, again, that bring you the most happiness are all about interpersonal relationship, about this leadership skill. It's all about having mutually satisfying relationships. Again, here's the low-high chart that I like to show. If you're not really good in this area, if you don't use it a lot in this leadership skill, it can look like these things on the left side. It could look like maybe you don't share your feelings, maybe you're a loner, maybe you're a little skeptical on things, maybe you're not building bonds with other people, maybe you're not even interested in relationships. If you really use your leadership skill of interpersonal relationships a bunch, what it typically looks like are these areas in this right column. You're able to establish these mutually satisfying relationships. You look positively at social change. You really spend time to build authentic relationships and share. And so, question that I had earlier to you guys, what benefits could you have at work or at home, pick whatever scenario you like, if you establish mutually satisfying relationships and you are generally fun to be around? What benefits do you think you can have in your work and or professional life if you really build out your interpersonal relationship leadership skills? What are your thoughts? Mark, you're about to write a book. Come on. What are your thoughts on this one? Could it benefit if you had relationships with your clients, relationships with your team? What about your vendor? What about the cross-functional team leaders in your company that you work for? Yeah, Janine, definitely can help you achieve your strategic goals, right? Lisa, bringing positive energy to meetings and collaboration. If you're generally positive, generally fun to be around, don't you think that's going to help people want to work with you, collaborate more, help each other when needed, give advice, build those relationships where you can ask them about your self-regard skill? Can you be open and honest with me with my strengths and weaknesses? Yeah, a client sent me a baby gift when I had my first child, Jessica said. Wasn't that great? Wasn't that very appreciative of the gratitude and how that built a relationship with you? Motivating work environment? Yeah, more promotability and opportunities. Absolutely. Now, in interpersonal relationships, just a quick, easy tip of how you can get better in this area. It's okay. Some people are like, I'm more introverted. I'm more, I need to put my head down. A lot of people in our profession kind of suffer from that, if you will. We need to get our work done. We have busy season. We have close. We have quarter end, year end planning. There's so many things. I don't have time to chit chat and all that. That's not it. It's a bunch of things. So my tip to you guys, my advice would be take an interest in others. Means like asking them personal questions, listen deeply and ask questions that really facilitate their telling you even more. And some people kind of shy away from this area, because I may be getting a question here about this, but many people shy away from this because they think that it could be seen as like intrusive, right? And so that's definitely something you look out for, but wrongly so, because people look to talk about themselves. We've heard that people like to talk about themselves. So most of the time, people will appreciate that you are taking an active interest in who they are and what they're saying. The questions you ask, of course, will depend on the nature of your relationship with the other person. So that's how you'll kind of customize your conversations. You can always prepare. If you're kind of not using this skill a lot, prepare in advance. Write down some questions that you would ask someone to get them to get to know them better. What would you ask your coworkers, your partners, your spouse, your significant other, your friend? What would you ask to get to know them better? Again, generally, most people will talk about themselves. Yeah, Jessica, I love that tip, especially in a remote environment, right? Very important to reach out and truly ask people how they're doing individually. We're all dealing with our own struggles, and it's good to feel someone cares when we are isolated from each other. Oh my goodness, I love that advice. Absolutely. That's actually one of the things I was gonna say. Everyone has something going on, no matter what type of self they bring to the table. There's always something going on. So if you truly care about someone and build those relationships, it's truly going to have a lot of benefits. So, okay, we're moving around the dial of the EQ model. Now, decision making, huge component of EQ. I just wanted to show you the 3 leadership skills in this area. It's all about problem solving, reality testing, and impulse control. Now, we're going to go ahead and move on for the sake of time to stress management, because in stress management, that's why we're here, right? We're going to focus on one of these in particular. We're going to actually focus on optimism. This is all about the positive attitude and outlook on life, okay? This is about remaining hopeful and resilient despite like occasional setbacks. We're all going to have them, especially in the year of 2020. Again, here's the low-high chart. I always like to show this to you guys. If someone were kind of low in this leadership area, it could look like they're uncertain about the future, pessimistic. They maybe even set goals that are likely to be conservative. I like sharing that one because I think that's important to remember. And then if you're really high in this area, you're hopeful about the approach to life, confident about the future, you're viewing things in a positive life, you believe in yourself and others. And that can be challenging, and especially in this day and age. So I'd love to hear from you. In general, would you describe yourself as having positive or negative expectations about how things will turn out? We'll love to hear. So got some positives from Bridget, Lisa, Janine, and Darlene. Yeah, it's okay if there's some negative. That's all right too, because we're going to work on it regardless if you're positive. Generally, most of the time are negative. Yeah, good. Julie used to be negative, but now more positive. So some people ask, how can I do better? I've shared this tip with some other people. It's such a simple kind of thing to say out loud, but it's so powerful. If you've ever tried this, I'd encourage you to try it. Just try it for a week. When a negative thought enters your mind, write it down. Write it down. Have a scratch piece of paper, journal, whatever it is. Have it beside your computer, whatever works for you. Write it down. And then have a designated time each day to deal with them. Again, I've shared this. It's powerful. Please try it at least once. The act of recording those negative thoughts down lots of times take away its power. And when you come back to them at your designated time, 6 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 in the morning, whatever you decide to do, lots of times there is not as big of an impact. So that is an easy tip that you can practice and try to help get more optimism in your life. All right, so we covered very high level EQ model and the 4 leadership skills that are most attributed to your overall happiness in the EQ world. Now, I told you I took a Yale University class earlier this year, and I thought it was awesome. They were actually offering it for free. I think they're continuing to do it a little longer if anyone's ever interested. It's called The Science of Well-Being. And our objective was all about to increase our own happiness and build more productive habits. And right, the habits part, because earlier, just like with the G.I. Joe fallacy, okay, cool, we know, right? We're going through this class and knowing, but I'm also sharing the tips so you can go do something. So I'm going to share you a few more things for you to consider to do, to practice, to build the habits. So the first thing we actually started with in this course, we actually measured our happiness before the course started and then after to see if our happiness increased. And then we started with kind of debunking some myths, right? Because lots of times there's things out there like, what really increases your overall happiness? A lot of people say, a good job, that'll make me happy. There's a ton of research that really debunks that. Money, right? If I just make a little more money, I'm just going to get happier. Ton of research that's not true either. What about if I buy like this awesome stuff, right? I want stuff, material stuff. Nope, that doesn't increase happiness. What about true love? Now I have the side that they went on with this because relationships, I do believe in that, and research does prove that. But the true love is that a lot of people are like, if I just get married, I'm going to be happier. That is what they're talking about. Some people push themselves to, I may need to enter into a marriage to be happier. Nope, that was debunked. And then we get into the perfect body, or even good grades is going to make me happier. All of these actually were proved to be false. There's a ton of research to prove this, and there's a lot of reasons why. And again, half of our course, we're going into the research and the reasons, but overall, it's lots of times because we have unrealistic reference points. So like on the true love one, I'll just circle back to this one. Lots of people, again, if I just get married, I'll be happier. Happiness, when they were measuring happiness, it actually did have a bump. People who just got married had a bump in their first 1 to 2 years after marriage. And then it went down to normal happiness levels. What's that called? We've heard this before. It's called the honeymoon phase, right? That's true. That's what the research has proved. So, along with those EQ skills that we went over, the tips that we went over that really improve happiness, some other tips that we learned in our Yale class with a lot of research about what helps increase happiness. So I'm going to share 5 with you. The first one is gratitude that I have up here. Research shows that taking time to experience gratitude can make you happier and even healthier. And so my tip to you guys is take 5 to 10 minutes each night to write down 5 things for which you are grateful. Now, these could be little things. These could be big things. Sometimes people get overwhelmed and kind of when they get into like, oh, I've got to journal. Make it your own. Like I started journaling October of 19, and I went through like a really rigorous process in the first 90 days. And then I actually just adapted it to work best for me. And I just started writing 5 bullet points each night of what I was truly grateful for that day. That's what worked best for me. And it could be like I had a really yummy lunch. It could be that candle smelled really good. It could be I got to visit with my nieces. It's whatever it is to you, small or big. But I really want you to focus on them, like when you're actually writing them. Think about words, phrases. Be mindful of the moment when you're writing about it. Like who was with you, a person or a thing. Like try to really get in the moment. And that kind of brings me to the second tip, which is savoring, which kind of is all about staying in the moment, because we often fail to stay in the moment and really enjoy what we're experiencing. So savoring, what it does, it really intensifies and lengthens the positive emotions that come with doing something you love. So the tip here is to just pick one experience to truly savor each day. This could be anything. This could be a nice hot shower. This could be a really good meal. This could be a great walk outside. I know Darlene was saying she loves to walk outside with her dogs and husband. Like, it could be whatever it is. Just experience that you truly enjoy. And when you take part in really savoring the experience, be sure you can even practice some enhancement tips. And I've shared them here. You could share them with the person. That typically enhances that savoring experience. You can, while you're in the moment, think about how lucky you are to just be able to enjoy such a thing, such an amazing moment. Maybe keep a souvenir or a photo of that activity, and making sure that you stay in the moment the entire time. Those research have proven, this is what we went over in our Yale class, what really helps enhance savoring. Okay, so the third area. Now, it's all about social connections. And again, I talked about this in the EQ space and interpersonal relationships. So I'm going to give you like another thing to think about in this space. Our social connections matter. There's a ton of research that shows that happy people spend more time with others, and they have richer set of social connections than unhappy people. Studies have even shown that simply the act of talking to a stranger can actually boost your mood more than we expect. So the tip here today, the first one, make one new social connection per day. I mean, this could literally be a 5-minute act, like sparking a conversation with someone. It could be a coworker, set up a quick virtual meeting. It could be literally you're going through the Starbucks drive-through with your new e-gift card from KOS CPA and talking to the barista. Just spend 5 minutes chatting with someone. But what I'm also going to challenge you is at least one time a week for an hour, seek time to really connect with someone you care about, like a more meaningful social connection. So this could be like a friend who's far away, give them a call, or a family member you haven't talked to in a while. The key is just to really take some time to generally connect with another person. That is the key to this. So however you adapt it for yourself. And at the end of the day, sometimes, this may be part of your gratitude, but at the end of the day, you can write down that you had that social connection and see how it made you feel. Should make you feel happier. Now, we have heard this, the fourth tip. How many years have we all heard this? Exercise, right? Just move your body. This boosts your mood in addition to obviously making you healthier. But the thing here is, I would just say, just try something, spend getting to move your body at least 30 minutes of exercise. So whether you start 1 day a week, whether you start 3, whatever it is, you've got to adapt to what works best for you. Put it on your calendar, set it aside, and actually do it. Yeah, none of us like to do it. Most people don't like to do it. It doesn't have to be a marathon type of thing. It could be jumping on the treadmill, doing a little yoga online thing. It could be dancing in your office and taking a 5-minute break. I don't care, right? Whatever works for you. I think that's the thing, is adapt it to what works for you. But it's all about moving your body more. Sleep. Okay, this is our 5th tip here in this Yale University. I believe in this. Go to bed. One of the reasons why we're so unhappy in our modern life is that we're typically just consistently sleep deprived. Research shows that when you sleep, you improve your mood even more than you expect. So again, guidelines, try to get 7 hours of sleep. I know a lot of you guys are going to say, oh my gosh, well, I can't do it this week. And then next week there's something, and the kids and this deadline, and it's busy season, and I have clothes going on. Okay, just designate a couple nights to get 7 hours of sleep. See how it feels. I bet you're going to feel better, and then try to make it a priority. So again, it helps not only us physically, but also mentally. And then think about those good sleep hygiene things. We're not supposed to really be looking at our phones right before we go to bed. I know I'm guilty of that. I've got to do better. Limiting caffeine and alcohol before bed, those type of things. So in our Yale class, we went over lots of techniques and tips of how to increase happiness. I put a quick, these are 8 of them. We went over 5 of them. The other 3 are on the top here. Tons of research. These are proven habits that you can start practicing that truly increase your overall happiness. Okay. And again, don't have to do all of them. Just pick something, do one thing, because knowing is not the half the battle. It's only a part of it. You actually got to do something to increase your happiness. So again, there's APA actually, I shared some survey stuff at the beginning of the course that they have put out. They have a ton of resources about how to support and manage stress. And they actually have really cool little guidelines about like supporting Gen Z or supporting students and lots of different things. You may want to check that out. It's full of resources. Some people also want to know more about EQ. All you have to do is go through someone that's certified in EQ if you really want to understand where you are in your emotional intelligence. I am certified. You can go through me or someone else to do that. You take an assessment and you get all these results of your EQ, where you are in all those skills, including your overall well-being and happiness factor, that indicator. You get information about that and gives you a lot of information of how, yeah, Darlene's showing her report. See, Darlene's done it. A lot of you guys actually have done it. And it helps you improve. It really gives you a ton of strategies for action to improve in not only your personal life, but your professional life. So again, I'm going to remind you one more time, take small steps. I've given you a ton of tips. I'm not saying do all of them. Start small. A big journey begins with small steps. So let's turn our frowns upside down, okay? What's one thing I want to hear from you guys in your group chat? So we're going to focus on, if you're going to focus on just one thing, one tip, one habit, right? Because you actually got to do something. Knowing is not half the battle. You got to do something to actually increase your happiness, to overcome your inner Grinch. You've got to do something. Would love to hear from you guys on what you think you're going to do. What's one thing that you plan to work on since we've talked today? Yeah, share your thoughts in there. Yeah, Darlene, gratitude journal, right? I got a nice little journal. And I do every night. I put the date and I put literally my bullets and I write something. And I love it. It does bring me positively. I love ending my day like that. Lisa said, yeah, taking time to savor just one thing, truly be in the moment, right? It could be even like when you're having a good catch up with your best friend, right? And really savoring that. I'm sure those are coming up soon. Yeah, work on relationships and journaling and exercising. A lot of people are saying that. Amy and Bridget, right? Janine, journaling the negative thoughts, right? And go back to them and then really kind of having them diffused. Usually, I love that tip because it works. I've had to use it a lot. I actually have anxiety, and that's one of the techniques that I go through. Breathing is a huge one for me. Gratitude journal. The technique, as Janine said, about journaling your negative thoughts and coming to them later. Yeah, lots of people are saying gratitude journal, writing maybe 5 things down every day. Yeah, meditate. Christy said, love it. Yeah, meditation were one of the techniques in our Yale class that there's a ton of research that proves just spending a minute, 3 minutes, you kind of build up in the meditation world to get better at that. Make a gratitude. Yeah, like Christine, you might have to do that in the middle of the night when no one else is awake. Sometimes you got to make it work for you, right? And that's the key here. Make it work for you. Make it, lots of time. There's all these suggestions out there. Exercise every single day for 30 minutes a day. There's so many things. Start small. Start with something that you can work on that's small. Build the habit, because that's how the big journey happens. That's where you'll really see the results. That's where your increase of your happiness will come from. So again, if you like the training, I do lots of other types of training. I'm also a coach, do the EQ assessments. Some of you guys have done that with me to understand your own emotional intelligence. Do consulting in a space, lots of different other things in the ethics space. I've taught our ethics for our KYCPA professional issues updates this year. That was a great experience with the team. Again, If you have any questions, well, I know you all sent me some through the group chat throughout this session, but I can hang out for a few minutes and answer any questions you have. I would love to connect with you guys. If we aren't connected on LinkedIn, please connect with me. You can literally, I put my QR codes up here, and you can just hover your camera on the LinkedIn and push invite to connect, and then we'll get all connected. Oh, thanks for all the comments, people. Yeah, Janine, we'll send you info for sure. Thanks, Lisa, L'Oreal, the positive comments. Thanks, guys. Again, I'm going to hang out for a little bit to answer any of your questions. Again, think about a tip that can work for you and implement that in over the next few weeks.